It was nearly midnight when Jackson Moore glanced down at his sleeping daughter curled up against his coat, her tiny hands still clutching the juice box she refused to finish 3 hours ago. "Train's delayed again," a soft voice said beside him, calm but clearly annoyed. He turned his head and saw her, a woman sitting just 2 seats away on the cold wooden bench. She looked out of place, sleek black heels, a tailored coat that probably cost more than his monthly rent, and her dark hair pinned up neatly despite the rain that had soaked both of them hours earlier. "Shocker," Jackson muttered, adjusting his daughter's blanket. "It's only the 4th delay tonight." The woman let out a light laugh, almost surprised at herself for doing so. "You're still waiting?" "Yup," Jackson said, pushing a hand through his damp hair. "Last train out. I can't afford to miss it." She raised an eyebrow. "You and Ellie," he said, nodding toward his daughter. "She's 5. School trip ran late. Babysitter bailed, and her mom's, well, not in the picture." Her expression shifted. Not pity, he hated pity. Just interest. "Tough night." "Been a tough year," he said honestly. She offered her hand. "Peyton Daniels." He hesitated, then shook it. "Jackson Moore." She smiled, warm but reserved. "Nice to meet you, Jackson." The rain pounded against the platform roof. The station was nearly empty now, just the two of them and Ellie, who murmured something in her sleep. Peyton glanced at the child, then back at him. "You do this a lot? Bring her with you?" He shrugged. "Only when I can't get coverage. I work construction, but lately I've been doing delivery shifts. Anything to keep us afloat." Peyton's gaze softened. "That's a lot to carry." "I'm used to it." He looked at her carefully. "You don't seem like someone who takes the train." She laughed again, a little richer this time. "I don't. My car broke down 2 blocks from here, and my driver's on the other side of the city. I had meetings all day. I just wanted to get home." "Where's home?" he asked. She glanced away. "Upper East Side." He blinked. "You mean like the actual Upper East Side?" She grinned. "I know. Spoiled, right?" "Little bit," he teased. They both laughed, and for a moment, the late hour and cold air didn't matter. Then Ellie stirred, blinking sleepily. "Daddy?" Jackson leaned over. "I'm here, baby." Peyton watched as he gently lifted her into his arms, cradling her head against his shoulder. "You're a good father." He looked up. "I try. I just want her to feel safe, you know? Even if everything else is falling apart." Peyton was quiet for a moment, her voice lower now. "That's more than most kids ever get." The loudspeaker crackled overhead. "Train arriving in approximately 35 minutes. Peyton sighed. "Of course." Jackson shifted Ellie to his other shoulder. "You hungry? There's a vending machine that still works." She raised an eyebrow. "Are you offering to buy me a soggy granola bar?" "I'm offering to share half of it," he said. She laughed. "How can I say no?" They walked together to the vending machine, the only lighted spot in the far corner. Jackson fed in a crumpled dollar and hit the button for crackers. It jammed. He hit the machine. The crackers dropped. "Impressive," Peyton said. He handed her half the pack and unwrapped the rest for Ellie, who was now fully awake and blinking at Peyton with suspicion. "Hi," Peyton said gently. Ellie didn't say anything, just clung tighter to Jackson. "She takes time," he explained. "Smart girl," Peyton said. They sat back down, Ellie in Jackson's lap now, half asleep again. Peyton glanced at her phone for the 10th time, then sighed. "I had a dinner reservation at Le Jardin tonight." Jackson gave her a mock gasp. "Is that the place with the chandelier that looks like a spaceship?" "It is," she said, smiling. "I was supposed to meet a board member, but I missed it." "Important meeting?" "I run the company," she said casually, then added, "Daniels Holdings." Jackson blinked. "Wait, Daniels Holdings? That's the real estate group." She nodded, watching his face. He sat back, stunned. "You're the CEO?" "Technically." "Don't look so shocked." "I've delivered packages to your office," he said slowly. "They have marble floors." She laughed. "You noticed?" "I notice luxury when I step in it with muddy boots." That made her laugh harder, and Ellie stirred again, wrinkling her nose. "I think she's judging me," Peyton said. "She judges everyone," Jackson replied. She once told her preschool teacher her shoes were emotionally exhausting. Peyton burst into laughter, and the sound echoed through the empty station. The next 30 minutes passed faster than he expected. They talked about music, bad movies, the worst coffee in the city. For the first time in months, Jackson forgot how tired he was. When the train finally pulled in, the wind kicked up and Peyton's hair flew loose from its bun. She tucked it behind her ear, looking at him. "Which car are you in?" she asked. "Back one. Closest to the exit when we get to the suburbs." She looked hesitant. "What?" he asked. She met his eyes. "I kind of don't want this to end." His heart skipped. "Me neither." The conductor called out, and Peyton glanced at the train, then at him. "This is going to sound crazy, but would you have dinner with me sometime?" He stared at her. "You mean like a real dinner? Not granola bars?" She smiled. "Real dinner. Fancy place. I'll even wear heels again." He looked down at Ellie. "Can I bring a +1?" Peyton knelt down. "Ellie, would it be okay if your dad had dinner with me?" Ellie looked at her for a long second. "Only if you bring cookies." Peyton laughed. "Deal." They boarded the train together, and as the doors closed behind them, Jackson couldn't help but feel like something had just changed forever. Jackson hadn't expected her to follow through. But the next evening, just after he set Ellie's grilled cheese on the chipped kitchen table, his phone rang. An unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something in his gut told him to pick up. "Hello. Hi, it's Peyton." From the train station. Her voice was warm, unhurried. He leaned against the counter. "Didn't think you'd actually call." "I don't bluff," she said easily. "Are you free Friday night?" He glanced at Ellie, who was now dipping her sandwich into a glass of milk with surgical precision. "Depends. Can my date still bring cookies?" "I'll have the bakery box ready," she said. "And I'll send a car for you." He hesitated. "That's not necessary. Humor me. You don't strike me as the kind of man who enjoys fighting for parking spots." He laughed despite himself. "Fair." When the car arrived Friday evening, Jackson almost backed out. His boots were polished. His shirt wasn't wrinkled for once. But he still felt like he didn't belong the moment he stepped inside the sleek black vehicle, Ellie's hand tucked tightly into his. The driver didn't speak, just nodded and pulled away from the curb as if chauffeuring them to the palace gates. The restaurant was all brushed gold and glass, the kind of place where everyone's voice dropped to a polite murmur. Jackson's jaw clenched as he took it all in. Ellie clutched his pant leg. And then Peyton appeared from around the corner, wearing a deep navy coat and a subtle red lip that made her look even more confident than he remembered. "Hi," she said, smiling at Ellie first. "You look beautiful." Ellie blinked, then looked down at her glitter sneakers. "Thanks." Jackson cleared his throat. "Place like this okay with kids?" "I made sure," Peyton said. "They've got a chef who used to design menus for celebrity toddlers." Ellie's eyes widened. "What's a celebrity toddler?" Peyton crouched to her level. "Someone who gets to eat dessert before dinner." "But don't get any ideas, I'm still making your dad eat his vegetables." The private table was tucked beside a window overlooking a quiet stretch of city skyline. Jackson sat stiffly, unsure what to do with the cloth napkin folded like origami on his plate. "I don't know which fork I'm supposed to grab first," he muttered. "Start with the one closest to your plate and pretend you know what you're doing," Peyton whispered back. He chuckled. "You always eat like this?" "Not always. Sometimes I order takeout and eat it on my office floor." "Sounds glamorous." "It's not. But it's honest." Ellie, meanwhile, was fully immersed in the children's tasting menu, which included something called deconstructed mac and cheese that made Jackson raise an eyebrow. "Is it weird?" Peyton asked, picking at a salad with pomegranate seeds and something purple he didn't recognize. "Only in the way that it's everything I've never seen before," he said. "You're seriously okay with this? Taking us out, I mean." "You asked if I was serious," Peyton said. "This is me proving it." Jackson leaned back slightly. "I'm not used to people proving things." "Then they've been doing it wrong." He studied her across the table. "Why me?" She met his eyes without blinking. "Because you didn't flinch last night. You didn't ask me for anything. And you didn't seem to care who I was." "I didn't know," he admitted. "Exactly." Ellie was now fully engrossed in a dessert tray the waiter brought over, so Jackson took a chance. "You're used to a different kind of guy, I'm guessing." "My ex wore cufflinks with his initials on them." Jackson winced. "That bad?" "He once bought me a yacht for my birthday." "I cried in the bathroom for half an hour." "Most people would cry from joy. I cried because I realized I didn't want anything he gave me. I just wanted him to see me." Jackson went quiet. Peyton leaned in. "I like that you see people, Jackson. I noticed it the second you picked up Ellie's juice box off the bench without thinking." He shifted in his seat, suddenly unsure where to place his hands. "I'm not trying to make this complicated," she said softly. "I just wanted to see what could happen if we didn't walk away." He gave a small nod. "Okay." After dinner, The driver pulled up again. Peyton walked them to the car, wrapping her coat tighter as wind picked up. Ellie yawned as Jackson buckled her in. Peyton stood by the door, hands in her pockets. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For tonight." "You're welcome." He paused, then added, "I'd like to return the favor, but I can't compete with this." "Try me. I make a mean grilled cheese," he offered. Peyton grinned. "I'm free next Thursday." He blinked. "Really? Only if there's ketchup for dipping." He held out a hand. "You drive a hard bargain." She shook it, lingering a second too long. As the car pulled away, Ellie already dozing off in the back seat, Jackson stared out the window. Something was happening. Something real. And it scared the hell out of him. The apartment smelled faintly of toast and lemon cleaner. A small victory considering Jackson had spent most of Thursday afternoon scrubbing the kitchen while keeping Ellie entertained with puzzle books and a stack of stickers. He borrowed a folding table from the neighbor downstairs, rearranged the mismatched chairs so they didn't wobble, and even tucked a cloth napkin, one of the two he owned, under each fork. He checked the clock again. When the knock came, Ellie beat him to the door. Peyton stood in the hallway, a paper bag in one hand, a bottle of something in the other. She wore jeans and a soft gray sweater, her hair down and windblown. There was no trace of her usual polish, and somehow she looked even more stunning. "Hi," she said, holding up the bag. "I brought pie." Jackson stepped aside. "You didn't have to bring anything. I wasn't going to come to dinner empty-handed." "That's deeply offensive behavior." Ellie tugged at her sleeve. "What kind of pie?" "Apple. With caramel, because I have excellent taste." Jackson took the bottle from her hand. "Sparkling cider?" She shrugged. "I figured you might not be a wine with dinner kind of guy." "You figured right." He didn't miss the way her eyes swept over the room, seeing the effort in the clean counters, the plates set neatly, the crayons tucked into a jar on the window ledge. "Place looks great," she said. "Don't open the hall closet," he replied. "That's where I threw everything else." Dinner was grilled cheese, exactly as promised. Jackson used sourdough and sharp cheddar, and the edges were perfectly crisp. Peyton took a bite, closed her eyes, and gave a soft hum of approval. "This is criminally good. I warned you I had one party trick." Ellie crunched a pickle with intense concentration. "He makes pancakes with chocolate chips shaped like hearts." Peyton turned to him. "Are you holding out on me?" "I didn't want to overwhelm you too soon." After dinner, Ellie curled onto the couch with her stuffed giraffe and a coloring book. Jackson handed her a blanket, then joined Peyton at the small table again, pouring the cider into 2 glasses. She leaned back. "You really live your life at a different speed. Is that a good thing?" "It's grounding," she said. "My world moves so fast I don't even know when I'm tired until I collapse." He studied her. "Why'd you start running in the first place?" She traced the rim of her glass. "My father built the company from nothing. He died when I was 22. The board saw me as a placeholder until they could find someone else to run it. So I worked twice as hard, made twice as much noise, and didn't stop until they couldn't ignore me." Jackson's voice was quiet. "Sounds lonely." "It was. Is." She shrugged, then looked at him. "But I think I made it harder than it had to be. I convinced myself love was a liability. That anyone who wanted me couldn't want the rest of it. Maybe they just didn't know how to want both." Peyton looked at him, something unspoken flickering in her expression. Ellie let out a small sigh from the couch, her head now resting on her giraffe. Peyton smiled softly. "She's out." Jackson nodded. "She'll sleep through anything once she's out cold." "Good. Because I have questions." He raised an eyebrow. "That sounds loaded. I want to know what you wanted to be before you became a full-time dad and part-time superhero." He tilted his chair back slightly. "I wanted to go into architecture." She blinked. "Really? I was obsessed with bridges as a kid. Used to draw them on everything: napkins, walls, my mom's checkbook." "What happened?" "My dad got sick my senior year. I had to take a job instead of going to school. Then Ellie showed up, and I started building different things. Diaper shelves, crib rails, life." Peyton was quiet for a moment. "You gave up a lot." "Maybe," he said. "But I got her." She looked down at her hands. "I've spent most of my adult life building something that looks perfect from the outside. But sometimes I think I forgot to check if it was livable." He reached across the table without thinking, brushing his fingers lightly over hers. "You could still build something new." She didn't pull away. Instead, her voice dropped. "What if I don't know how? You're here now, aren't you?" They sat there in silence for a beat, the city's noise filtering faintly through the window. Then Peyton stood. "Can we go for a walk?" He glanced at the clock. You okay leaving her? My sister's downstairs, he said. She offered to hang out just in case. She gave him a curious look. I didn't want to assume you'd stay long, but I hoped. The hallway light flickered as they stepped out of the apartment. The building was old, the elevator broken, so they took the stairs. Outside, the night was cool, not cold. The streets were quiet. They walked in silence for a block before Peyton spoke. You know what I miss? What? Messy things. Imperfect things. People who don't need to perform. You get a lot of performers? All the time. Everyone wants something. A contract. A favor. A name to drop. And what do you want? She stopped walking, turned to face him. I want someone who sees me before they see the company. Someone who doesn't care whether I show up with a driver or not. Someone who looks at me the way you did at that train station. Jackson's voice was low. How did I look at you? Like I wasn't a headline. Like I was just a woman who missed her train. His hand found hers again, fingers interlocking easily. You were. The street lamp buzzed above them. Her eyes didn't leave his. I want to kiss you, she said. But I don't want to mess this up. You won't, he whispered. She leaned in, and the kiss was soft, sure, not rushed. It felt like the start of something neither of them knew how to name. When they pulled apart, she rested her forehead against his. I'm scared, she said. So am I. But neither of them let go. 3 weeks later, Jackson stood on the rooftop of a limestone building in Midtown, his calloused hands tugging uncertainly at the lapels of a tailored charcoal jacket he hadn't paid for. He hadn't bought the shoes either, or the shirt. Peyton had sent everything delivered in garment bags with handwritten tags along with a note that only said, "Wear this. Trust me." He wasn't sure which part unnerved him more, the custom fit or the fact that she knew his size without asking. The rooftop had been transformed. Strings of soft golden lights crisscrossed overhead, glowing against the dusk. Along the edges, tall heaters flickered beside clusters of white tulips and low candlelit tables. Waiters in black moved like shadows, setting down flutes of something sparkling. It looked like the kind of place people got engaged, not the kind of place someone like him belonged. But Ellie had twirled in her dress for 20 minutes before leaving with Peyton's sister, who had offered to take her for a sleepover. She'd whispered to him, "Tell Peyton she looks like a movie," before hopping into the car with a glittery backpack and a wave. Now he waited, and then he saw her. She stepped onto the rooftop from the glass elevator, no coat, no guards, no entourage. Just Peyton. Her dress hugged her in a way that made his breath catch, but it wasn't the clothes. It was the look in her eyes. She walked straight to him, heels silent on the stone. You came, she said. You sent a tux with my name on it, he murmured. Didn't feel like I had much of a choice. You had every choice, she said. You chose me. He looked around. What is all this? I canceled a gala tonight, she said. It was supposed to be for investors. Instead, I made it just for us. He stared at her, stunned. I wanted to show you something, she added. Not with speeches or press releases. Just honestly. He stepped closer. What are you trying to show me? That I'm not just the company I built. That I can let go of the image, the expectations. That I want something real, and I'm willing to fight for it. He reached for her hand. You don't have to fight alone. Peyton exhaled slowly, like she'd been holding that breath for weeks. I've been thinking about that night at the station, he said. You told me you didn't want it to end. Neither did I, but I didn't expect it to turn into this. Does this scare you? Absolutely, he said. But I'm more scared of walking away and never knowing what we could have had. Peyton's fingers curled around his. Then don't walk away. A string quartet began to play softly in the corner. He hadn't even noticed them until now. The music drifted through the air, slow and warm. She stepped in closer. Dance with me? He hesitated. I don't know how. I'll teach you. They moved together slowly, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder, his other hand at her waist. His steps were stiff at first, unsure, but she didn't laugh or correct him. She just leaned in, her cheek brushing his. I never would have guessed I'd fall for someone I met on a train platform, she whispered. I never would have guessed you'd fall for me at all. She pulled back, meeting his eyes. That was never in question. He swallowed hard. I've been offered a job. Her brows lifted. Where? An architecture firm in the city. Junior position. One of the partners saw the park structures I submitted last year. Said I had a good eye. Peyton lit up. Jackson, that's amazing. I only applied because of you, he said. You made me believe I could do more. She blinked quickly, then nodded with a smile. You can. He took a breath. It'll mean changes. I'll need help with Ellie some evenings. I can help, she said without hesitation. You're running a company. I'm also building a life. I want both. He couldn't look away from her. I love you, she said, voice steady. I've been waiting to say it until it meant something more than timing. And now it does. His throat tightened. I love you too. The music swelled, but the moment was quiet between them. Raw. Real. I don't care about the suits or the skyline, he said. I care that you show up. That you sit on my beat-up couch and eat grilled cheese and let my daughter call the shots. That you see me. Her eyes shone. I do. He kissed her slow, sure, this time without hesitation. Around them, the rooftop faded into blur. The music, the lights, the skyline, it all fell away. Later that night, they stood at the edge of the rooftop, side by side, watching the city hum beneath them. Peyton leaned into him, her head resting against his shoulder. What happens now? She asked. We figure it out, he said. Together. And as the wind whispered softly through the tulips, she laced her fingers through his, and neither of them let go. The first time Peyton took the subway with Jackson and Ellie, she didn't wear heels. She wore sneakers, bright white ones that Ellie picked out and insisted Peyton had to wear because they're fast. Peyton had laughed, but she wore them. They were headed downtown to the Science Museum, Ellie bouncing between them, one hand in each of theirs, chattering about astronaut ice cream and a planetarium show that made her feel like she was flying. As they descended into the station, Peyton glanced at Jackson. I spent years avoiding the subway. I always thought it was too chaotic. Jackson grinned. And now, I think it's alive, she said, and slightly terrifying. Ellie tugged Peyton's arm. But we're braver than the subway, right? Peyton squeezed her hand. Definitely. They spent the day wandering exhibits, Ellie's enthusiasm infectious. Peyton found herself laughing more than she had in months, her arm brushing Jackson's as they leaned over dinosaur skeletons and watched Ellie press every button she could find. Later, as they waited for their ride back to Jackson's apartment, Peyton tilted her head toward him. You know, I'm learning more about centrifugal force than I ever expected. He nudged her shoulder. You're welcome. Their rhythm had settled into something steady. Peyton hadn't stopped running her company, but she'd changed how she moved through it, delegating more, skipping the meaningless cocktail parties, and coming home to something that didn't feel empty anymore. One afternoon, Jackson met her outside her office building, Ellie already at her sister's for the night. She raised an eyebrow. This is a surprise. I need you to come with me, he said. Should I be concerned? Only if you're allergic to paint fumes. She followed him to a narrow art studio tucked above a row of bookstores in Soho. Inside, the walls were lined with canvases, blueprints, and architectural sketches in various stages of completion. Peyton turned slowly, taking it all in. Is this yours? I signed the lease last week, he said. They needed someone to help with restoration projects for some old brownstones in Brooklyn. I asked if I could turn the back room into a workspace. They said yes. She stepped closer to one of the blueprints. You're really doing this? I am. He pulled something from a drawer and handed it to her. A sketch, hand-drawn, of a small building with wide windows and a garden out front. This, he said, is what I want to build next. She studied it. What is it? A community center. For families like mine. Single parents, working-class folks. A place to breathe. I've already started pitching it to some local donors. She looked up at him. What do you need? He shook his head. Nothing. I'm not asking for a check. I just wanted you to see it. She folded the sketch carefully. I want to help. Not because I'm your girlfriend, but because this matters. He smiled. You just called yourself my girlfriend. Her lips curved. I did. That night, he cooked. Real food, not grilled cheese. She brought wine, and they sat on the fire escape under a sky that Ella swore was almost purple. I'll never get used to this, Peyton said, her hand resting over his. To what? The way this feels. Like it's supposed to? She nodded, her eyes soft. Exactly like that. One Saturday, Ellie came running into the living room with a sheet of paper clutched in her hand. I wrote something, she said, beaming. Want to hear it? Jackson and Peyton exchanged a look and nodded. Ellie stood tall, clearing her throat. Roses are red. The sky can be blue. My dad makes pancakes, and Peyton's cool too. Peyton burst out laughing. I think that's the highest praise I've ever received. Ellie climbed into her lap. You're my best grown-up friend. Except Daddy. He's the best. I can live with second best. Peyton said, wrapping her arms around her. Spring came quickly. The city shook off its gray. Jackson's firm expanded his hours. Peyton started a mentorship program for girls in underserved neighborhoods and began teaching a workshop once a month. They saw each other nearly every day, sometimes in the quiet hours before the world woke up, sometimes in the noisy chaos of bedtime. One evening, Jackson took her hand as they walked through the park near her apartment. "I've been thinking about something," he said. She looked sideways. "Dangerous words. I don't want this to be temporary." "It's not. I mean long-term. I want you in every version of my future." She stopped walking. "Are you asking something?" He reached into his jacket and pulled out a tiny velvet box. "I'm asking everything." She opened it slowly. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, a single stone with a band that looked almost like twisted vines. "I didn't want something off a shelf," he said. "I had this made from a pendant my mom used to wear." Her eyes filled. "I don't need anything flashy." "I know," he said, "but I wanted something that meant something." She looked at him, then down at the ring, then back. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes." Ellie screamed when they told her. "Do I get to wear a dress?" "A sparkly one." "You can wear whatever you want," Jackson said. "You're walking Peyton down the aisle." Peyton looked at Ellie. "Only if you're okay sharing your dad with me forever." Ellie threw her arms around them both. "You're already mine." They married in the botanical garden where Peyton used to hide out as a teenager when the world felt too heavy. She wore a dress with a low back and wildflowers in her hair. Jackson wore a navy suit, no tie, and a smile he couldn't contain. Ellie carried a basket of petals and insisted on telling everyone she was the flower boss. There were no investors, no paparazzi, no press. Just friends, family, and one string quartet that played until the sky turned to soft gold. At the reception, Jackson pulled Peyton aside and kissed her slowly, the kind of kiss that didn't need an audience to matter. She touched his face after. "You still make me feel like the only person in the world." "You are." Months later, in their new home just outside the city, a restored brownstone with tall windows and a crooked staircase that Ellie declared was perfect for sliding, they stood in the kitchen together, barefoot, her in his shirt, him in pajama pants, coffee brewing behind them. Peyton leaned against the counter. "This life we built, it doesn't feel real sometimes." "It's real," he said, wrapping his arms around her waist. "And it's ours." Ellie came in moments later, hair a mess, clutching a notebook. "I'm writing a new poem," she announced. "It's about how love is like pancakes." Peyton laughed. "That sounds delicious." And as the morning sun spilled across the hardwood floor, Jackson kissed his wife. Their daughter danced in the hallway, and the world outside kept spinning. But inside that house, love had found its forever.